Hi everybody! Today I'm going to be showing you the best teams that you can use in Guild Battle at the moment in Cookie Run Kingdom. Enjoy! On screen right now there are some timestamps. There are also chapters in the video itself in case you want to skip ahead to a specific boss or a specific team. The first boss up is the Red Velvet Dragon boss. So for Red Velvet Dragon, there are 3 team variations which are used. These teams all have pretty similar builds, but I'll go through all of them now and I'll also tell you their uses. So up first is the Poison Comp Rebel Front team. This team uses Rebel Cookie, Shadow Milk Cookie, Prune Juice Cookie, Black Sapphire Cookie and Candy Apple Cookie. The treasures used are Scroll, Whistle and Watch. So the first cookie up for this team is Rebel Cookie. Rebel uses a 4-line cooldown biscuit and then a full crit set. You want to try to aim for 32% cooldown on Rebel and then you want to put the rest into crit. If you need to, you can run a mixed set to hit this, so you can use one or more cooldown toppings with your crit toppings to hit the 32%. The topping substats on each topping should really be going into crit, damage resist and cooldown. If you're having any trouble with Rebel dying, you should just add more damage resist onto your substats. Watch out with Rebel, especially if you have attack subs on his toppings, because you want to make sure that Rebel's attack doesn't surpass either Prune Juices or Black Sapphires, because you don't want Rebel to take Whistle. So the next cookie up is Shadow Milk Cookie. Shadow Milk Cookie needs at least 33% cooldown. This is possible if you have an amazing biscuit and perfect toppings, but it's much easier if you just run 4 crit toppings, 1 cooldown topping and use a 4-line cooldown biscuit. Your topping substats should be going into crit, attack and cooldown, but again, similar to Rebel, you want to make sure that Shadow Milk's attack doesn't surpass either Prune Juices or Black Sapphires, because you don't want Shadow Milk to take Whistle. Next up is Prune Juice. Prune Juice uses a full cooldown biscuit and a 4 attack 1 cooldown topping set, hitting at least 35% cooldown. Your topping substats should be going into crit, attack and cooldown. Make sure that Prune Juice gets Whistle. The next cookie up is the main damage dealer, and that is Black Sapphire Cookie. Black Sapphire runs a mixed 3 attack 2 crit set, and he should at a very minimum have 8.5% cooldown to make sure that he casts before the stun, which occurs at around 20 seconds. If you want to, you can run a little bit more cooldown to make it easier to cast before the stun. I personally have around 9%. The rest of your substats for Black Sapphire should be going into crit and attack. On his biscuit, he wants to run a full poison damage biscuit, so don't use a tainted biscuit because it caps at a maximum of 20% poison damage with only 1 line, and realistically you want a 4-line poison biscuit aiming as close to 60% as possible. Make sure that Black Sapphire gets Whistle. The final cookie for this team is Candy Apple Cookie. Candy Apple wants at least 50% damage resist. You can do this in a couple of ways. You can either run full damage resist toppings on Candy Apple and run a full attack speed biscuit, or you can run full attack speed toppings and run a damage resist biscuit, whichever you have, or you can also run a mixed biscuit using attack speed and damage resist and then have mixed toppings, or whatever's easiest. Candy Apple, as I said, needs at least 50% damage resist and around 5% cooldown. Then you want to try and get the rest of your subs into attack speed. Try to avoid getting any attack subs in case Candy Apple tries to steal Whistle. So here is a guided run for you. So the run starts by queuing Rebel Cookie, and then you just want to leave it on auto. As soon as the boss banner appears and after Rebel has cast, press all 3, Shadow Milk, Prune Juice and Black Sapphire all together. Cue Candy Apple, and from this point just spam. I personally use all 5 fingers and I just continuously spam until the timer runs out.
Show's over.
Special brew coming right up.
Oh, it's gonna be fun. You can't catch me.
Special brew coming right up.
Show's over. It's gonna be You fun. Can't catch me.
Special brew coming right up.
Make sure that here, at 20 seconds, you're really spamming Black Sapphire to make sure that he gets his skill in before the stun.
Special brew coming right up.
You can't catch me.
Special brew coming right up.
Show's over. You can't catch me.
Special brew
And
coming right
voila!
up.
There's your run hitting 8.6 billion damage. Next up is the Matcha Poison Front comp. Let's get right into it. So this comp uses Matcha Cookie, Shadow Milk Cookie, Prune Juice Cookie, Black Sapphire Cookie and Candy Apple Cookie. The treasures used are scroll, whistle and watch. First up is Matcha Cookie. Now Matcha Cookie uses a tainted poison biscuit, running either 3 lines of cooldown or 2 lines of cooldown, 1 line of damage resist. You then want to run full cooldown toppings until you hit 32% cooldown. You can swap out the cooldown toppings once you've hit this for crit toppings as long as you maintain hitting the 32% cooldown. I personally run 4 cooldown toppings and 1 crit. With Matcha, you also want to have at least 30% damage resist. So personally, I would recommend for a biscuit running 2 line cooldown, 1 line damage resist on the tainted because it makes it much easier to hit the damage resist requirements. Plus, it lets you add more onto your toppings without having to swap out an apple jelly or a Swift chocolate for a solid almond, which means you won't be sacrificing too much damage. Watch out when you promote Matcha or leveling up her biscuit if you haven't, because if your Matcha has high ascensions, she might try and overtake Prune Juice or Black Sapphire for attack. So just make sure that she doesn't have more attack before promoting. Next up is Shadow Milk Cookie. Now Shadow Milk Cookie needs at least 33% cooldown. This is possible if you have an amazing biscuit and perfect toppings, but it is much easier to just run 4 crit toppings and 1 cooldown topping with a 4 line cooldown biscuit. Your topping substats should be going into crit, attack and cooldown, but make sure that Shadow Milk's attack doesn't surpass either Prune Juice's or Black Sapphire so he doesn't take whistle. For this run, Prune Juice optimally wants to run a 3 line poison biscuit with 1 line of cooldown and a full cooldown set with at least 32% cooldown, with substats then into crit, attack and cooldown. If you don't have a poison biscuit, you can get really similar damage, where I've personally noticed by running the 2 sets that there's only about a 200 million difference between them by running a full attack set with a cooldown biscuit, again with 32% cooldown. You can also run this if you're having trouble giving Prune Juice whistle when using a poison biscuit cooldown set. Make sure that Prune Juice gets the whistle. The next cookie up is the main damage dealer of the team, and that is Black Sapphire Cookie. Black Sapphire runs a mixed attack and crit set. He should at very minimum have 8.5% cooldown to make sure that he casts before the stun, which occurs at 20 seconds. You can run more cooldown than this to make it easier to cast before the stun. I recommend trying to aim for 9%. The rest of your substats should be going into crit and attack. He runs a full poison damage biscuit. Don't use a tainted biscuit because it caps the maximum poison damage at 20%. He wants to run a 4 line poison biscuit, aiming for as close to 60% poison damage as possible. Make sure that Black Sapphire has whistle. The final cookie is Candy Apple Cookie. Candy Apple needs at least 50% damage resist and 5% cooldown. This can be achieved in a few ways. You also want to get as much attack speed as possible on Candy Apple, so you can run full attack speed toppings with a damage resist biscuit, or you can run full damage resist toppings with an attack speed biscuit, or you can run a mixed biscuit if you have it. Try and avoid getting any subs in Candy Apple that are crit and attack, because you want to make sure that Candy Apple doesn't steal whistle. So here's the run. First up, you're going to queue Matcha Cookie. Then you're going to cast Prune Juice, Shadow Milk and Black Sapphire all together. Once Black Sapphire is cast, you're going to queue Candy Apple and then just spam. I just continuously tap the screen and spam until the timer runs out.
Gonna be fun!
Special brew coming right up.
Oh, it's gonna be fun!
Special brew coming right up.
Oh, it's gonna be fun!
Special brew coming right up.
Oh, it's gonna be fun!
Make sure that here at 20 seconds, Black Sapphire casts so that he gets his skill in before the stun.
Special brew coming right up.
Oh, it's gonna be
Special brew coming right up.
Oh, it's gonna be fun!
And voila, there's your run with 9.7 billion damage. The final red velvet dragon set there is the Dark Choco Poison Comp. I'm going to give you the best stats for this, but I am going to preface this by saying that I have a major skill issue and that my Dark Choco is very unreliable, and I blame this on the fact that my Dark Choco skill is level 80. I believe that you can make it work if your Dark Choco is level 80, but you also need high HP landmarks such as that beautiful cake tower, which mine is unfortunately only at level 60, so maybe not high enough. My statue is also not very high, so if you have higher statue or higher level landmarks, you may be able to get Dark Choco to live more consistently. I just can't get him to consistently run, and my damage is not the best in the world. The damage for this build can go upwards of 12 billion if you build it correctly and live all the way throughout. So I'm going to show you the build that you should use, and I'm also going to show you the timings that I use, but you may want to play around a bit with the timing so that you can get it perfectly working for your build. So this team consists of Dark Choco Cookie, Shadow Milk Cookie, Prune Juice Cookie, Black Sapphire Cookie and Candy Apple Cookie. The treasures used are Scroll, Whistle and Watch. First up is the star of the show and the most annoying cookie in all of Guild Battle. Just kidding. It's Dark Choco Cookie. He needs 70% damage resist and then the rest of your subs should all go into HP. You can run a few different biscuits for this. You can run 2-line damage resist, 2-line HP, 3-line damage resist, 1-line HP, or 4-line damage resist, whichever works best for you. Then just use mixed toppings to hit 70% damage resist and as much HP as you possibly can while still hitting that 70%. If you haven't yet, it's very important that you do not level Dark Choco's skill up. The higher the skill level, the more difficult it is to get him to survive. My Dark Choco skill is level 80. And his level is level 80. Let's just say I was a bit of an idiot, I put him in Hall, I skilled his skill all the way to level 90, so mine is kind of bricked. I found that he has slightly more success at level 80 with skill level 80, but if his skill level is not leveled up, do not level it because you will probably brick yourself. So just don't. You can level his base level up, but don't level his skill up too high because it will brick. Because it will make this team absolutely unbearable. You also need his magic candy at level 30 to do the most damage. Shadow Milk is next. He uses a full crit set with a cooldown biscuit. He needs at least 32% cooldown with the rest of his subs into crit and attack. Make sure that Shadow Milk doesn't steal Whistle. Prune Juice Cookie uses a full crit set with crit, attack and cooldown subs with a full cooldown biscuit. Prune Juice needs at least 30.5% cooldown. Make sure that Prune Juice gets Whistle. You can use mixed crit and attack toppings if needed. Black Sapphire Cookie uses a full crit set with crit, attack and cooldown subs with a full poison damage biscuit. Black Sapphire also needs 8.5% cooldown, however I would aim for a little bit more than this to make it easier to cast before the stuns that happen at around 20 seconds. Make sure that Black Sapphire gets Whistle. If needed, you can use mixed crit and attack toppings to hit this. For survivability, Candy Apple works best if she has 28+% cooldown using either a full cooldown biscuit or a full damage resist biscuit and then 50+% damage resist. Just make sure that you hit these using whatever biscuit or toppings you have, then try and put the rest into attack speed. You can also try running high attack speed and seeing if that works better for you on Candy Apple, but I personally have more success with a cooldown build. Make sure that Candy Apple doesn't steal Whistle. You can keep the biscuit under leveled if needed. Okay, so for timings, there are quite a lot of timings in this run, so it's a little bit complicated. If you want to run this team, as I said before, I'd say play around in practice mode for a bit, experiment a bit and find what works best for you, but here is my guided run in case you want to follow it. So first up, you're going to queue Dark Choco Cookie and put the timer on 1x speed. This will make it easier to time. Then you should press Shadow Milk, Prune Juice and Black Sapphire all together. Once Black Sapphire has cast, queue Candy Apple. Once their cooldown is up, you should cast Prune Juice and Shadow Milk, and then you should cast Candy Apple and watch her skill. Bam clicks Black Sapphire. As soon as Candy Apple goes up on the screen, you should cast Dark Choco. You should then spam press Prune Juice and Shadow Milk Cookie. You should cast Candy Apple and watch her skill again. Cast Dark Choco when it's in the air. You should cast Candy Apple and watch her skill again. Cast Dark Choco when it's in the air. And then just continue spamming until the end. And voila! This is the most complicated guild guide I'll show you today. This gave me 10 billion, which I personally find is not worth it because it's really risky whether Dark Choco lives or not, so I instead just run Matcha. So maybe you're thinking, which team do I choose? If you're hitting Red Velvet Dragon under level 100, I would recommend always to use the Dark Choco team because there is virtually no risk of dying. You don't need to use any timings for this team, you can simply just spam all the cookies. Just spam them all as if you were doing any other run. At level 100 or higher, you can then choose between either Matcha or Dark Choco. I'd recommend these two because they do the most damage. However, if for some reason you can't build either of these two, you can choose Rebel, but Rebel does the least amount of damage. Once you hit level 250 plus, you then might consider using Rebel over Matcha if your Matcha is dying. but just choose whichever build you can build or whichever one does the most damage for you. Okay, so the next team up is the Avatar of Destiny. There is only really one team which is used for the Avatar of Destiny, so I'll show it to you now. This team consists of Pudding a la Mode Cookie, Mint Choco Cookie, Creme Brulee Cookie, Cream Ferret Cookie, and Star Coral Cookie. The treasures used are Scroll, Whistle, and the Librarian's Robe. First up is Pudding a la Mode Cookie. So, Pudding a la Mode runs a 4-line attack speed biscuit with a mixed crit, attack speed, and amplified buff set. The stats recommended for Pudding a la Mode are 58.2% attack speed, this is your breakpoint, 24.5% crit, and then as much amplified buff as possible. Any crit or attack speed over these numbers won't do much, so once you hit them, you should focus on getting more amplified buff on Pudding a la Mode. In order of importance for stats on Pudding a la Mode, you should focus on hitting the attack speed breakpoint, and then you should focus on crit, and then you should focus on amplified buff. If your Star Coral has less than 48% cooldown, you're going to need around 5% cooldown on Pudding a la Mode. The next cookie is Mint Choco. Now Mint Choco wants basically as much cooldown as you can possibly get, preferably 51% plus. For Mint Choco you want a 4-line cooldown biscuit and then a full cooldown topping set. Mint Choco also wants some attack speed, try and aim for around 11% plus, however you should focus on getting cooldown first. Mint Choco's magic candy doesn't matter, you don't need to level it up for this team. Next up is the main damage dealer of the team, and that is Creme Brulee. Creme Brulee Cookie wants a full attack topping set with a full attack speed biscuit. On your toppings you want attack or crit, attack speed and cooldown substats with at least 7.7% cooldown on Creme Brulee so that he casts before the silence occurs. For attack speed on Creme Brulee you want at an absolute minimum 40.6% attack speed, however the more the better. You want to realistically try and aim for 49.3%, which is a second breakpoint. Then, once you've hit this, if you want to, you can aim for 53.2% if you're super pro, because this will make you do a lot more damage. Make sure that you hit these attack speed requirements whilst using full attack toppings. Next up is Cream Ferret Cookie. Cream Ferret has a pretty simple build. She wants 38% cooldown and 9% attack speed, and that is it. Then for Star Coral, you want to aim for 48% cooldown and 12% attack speed. But if you can't meet this, you want to make sure that Star Coral has at least 40.5% cooldown. Here is a guided run. If you have the maximum recommended cooldown on Mint Choco, these are the timings that you'll need. You should queue Star Coral. As soon as Star Coral casts, you should use Mint Choco, and then you should queue Cream Ferret. You want to then queue Pudding a la Mode, and as soon as Pudding a la Mode casts, before the boss text, you're going to quickly press Creme Brulee to queue him. You just then want to cast based off of cooldown until around the 40-second mark.
Peekaboo! Brighter! Illumination mode on!
Reaching the culmination. Prestissimo!
I'd recommend slowing the game back down to 1x speed at this point and queuing Mint Choco and Star Coral, making sure that Pudding a la Mode doesn't auto-cast. Then you want to manually cast Pudding a la Mode at 33 seconds. Keep queuing based off of cooldown.
Reaching the culmination.
Peekaboo! Brighter!
Then you should cast Pudding a la Mode at 16 seconds.
Reaching the culmination.
Illumination mode on! Brighter! Brighter!
Prestissimo!
Peekaboo!
Reaching the culmination.
And then you want to cast Pudding a la Mode again at 2 seconds, and voila, that is your run.
Reaching the culmination.
If you have a slower Mint Choco, you should instead cast either, if you have 48% plus cooldown, cast Mint Choco after the boss banner text appears, just before Creme Brulee would cast. At 45%, you want to cast when your cookies are on the steps, and at 43%, you want to cast at around this line that I've placed on screen. And the final guild boss, this is the newest team, that is for the Living Abyss. Now, there's 2 teams that you can build for the Living Abyss. One of them does slightly less damage but is easier to survive and can be used if you're having trouble getting Whistle onto Black Forest, or if you don't have Twizzly Gummy built, and the other one is a slightly more advanced build which requires a few more promotions on Black Forest, but they're both pretty easy to build. So I'm going to start with the easier team, and that is the Star Coral version. This team consists of Black Forest Cookie, Blueberry Pie Cookie, Wedding Cake Cookie, Star Coral Cookie and Cream Ferret Cookie. First up is Black Forest Cookie. Now the most optimal build for this is a mixed crit attack topping set, with 2 crit and 3 attack. On these toppings you want crit, attack and attack speed substats. Then on your biscuit, depending on how good your toppings are, the most optimal is to have 2 lines of attack speed, 1 line of attack and 1 line of crit. However, you may need to run more attack speed lines if you don't have 2 orange or perfect toppings because you need at least 34% attack speed. Black Forest also needs Whistle. Black Forest needs to have the second most attack and the most attack speed so that Black Forest gets robes. Next up is Blueberry Pie Cookie. Blueberry Pie needs her magic candy at least level 10. However, the higher the better. The higher you have it, the more damage you should do. So you should focus on building this. Then at a minimum, she needs 10% attack speed using 3 crit toppings and 2 attack toppings. For substats on these toppings, you want 4 of the toppings to have attack speed, attack and crit substats. And then on one of the toppings you want amplify buff, crit and attack substats, with as much attack and crit as you can possibly get. On the biscuit you want to run full electric damage. Blueberry Pie needs the most attack and the second most attack speed. Make sure that she gets both Whistle and robes. Next up is Wedding Cake Cookie. Wedding Cake Cookie needs 50% cooldown and as much debuff resist as possible. Around 8.5% is optimal, so you want to run full cooldown toppings with debuff resist subs and crit or attack subs as well as a cooldown sub and a full cooldown biscuit. Next up is Cream Ferret. Cream Ferret also wants 50% cooldown, and on these toppings you want attack, crit or attack speed subs. Just make sure that Cream Ferret doesn't surpass Blueberry Pie's attack speed. Star Coral also uses the same build as Cream Ferret with 50+% cooldown. So here's the run for you. It's a really nice simple run. You should cast Star Coral immediately and then cast Cream Ferret. Then cast Wedding Cake Cookie and Cure again. Then you can just leave it on full auto for the whole time.
Blessings for the bride. I cannot hold back. Peekaboo. Blessings for the bride. Brighter. I protect. Peekaboo. Blessings for the bride. Brighter. Blessings for the bride. Peekaboo. Brighter. Blessings for the bride. Peekaboo. Blessings for the bride. I protect. Blessings for the bride. Peekaboo. Blessings for
And
the
voila.
bride. Hold back.
There's your run and a nice easy 9 billion damage on the Living Abyss. Next up is slightly more difficult to build but still pretty straightforward. This team consists of Black Forest Cookie, Blueberry Pie Cookie, Wedding Cake Cookie, Twizzly Gummy Cookie and Cream Ferret Cookie. The treasures used are Scroll, Librarian's Robe and Whistle. First up is Black Forest Cookie. Now, the most optimal build for this is a full crit topping set. You want on these toppings to have crit, attack and attack speed substats, and then on the biscuit, it depends on how good the toppings are, but optimally you would have 2 lines of attack speed, 1 line of attack and 1 line of crit, but it's easier if you run 3 lines of attack speed and then either 1 line of crit or 1 line of attack, whichever you get. You need at least 34% attack speed on Black Forest, and you also need to make sure Black Forest has Whistle. You can do this by either having an underleveled Twizzly Gummy, having an underleveled Twizzly Gummy biscuit, or running a mixed set. I believe once you get to 5 Ascension of Black Forest that this shouldn't be a problem, but at the moment, because of the Black Forest gacha, mine is only 4 star, so I run a mixed crit and attack set. You need to make sure that she gets both Whistle and robes. Next up is Blueberry Pie Cookie. Blueberry Pie needs her magic candy at least level 10, however, the higher the better. Then at a minimum, 10% attack speed using 3 crit, 2 attack toppings. For substats, you should ideally have 4 of your toppings with attack speed, crit and attack, and 1 topping with amplify buff, crit and attack, with as much attack and crit as you can get. On the biscuit, you want to run full electric damage. Blueberry Pie needs the most attack and the second most attack speed. Make sure she gets both Whistle and robes. Next up is Wedding Cake Cookie. Wedding Cake Cookie needs 50% cooldown and as much debuff resist as possible. Around 8.5% is optimal, so you want to run full cooldown toppings with debuff resist substats and then either crit or attack substats, with a full cooldown biscuit. Next up is Twizzly Gummy. Twizzly Gummy needs full cooldown toppings and a full cooldown biscuit as well. Twizzly also needs her magic candy to be level 30 to do the most damage. Twizzly needs around 47.5% cooldown, and you might, as I said, choose to underlevel Twizzly to get more crit toppings on Black Forest instead of attack. Try to avoid attack substats on Twizzly because this will make it harder for Black Forest to get Whistle. Finally is Cream Ferret. Cream Ferret wants 50% cooldown with attack, crit or attack speed subs with a full cooldown biscuit. So here's a run for you. You're first going to start by queuing Cream Ferret, and then you're going to cast Wedding Cake after Cream Ferret. Then you're going to queue Wedding Cake again, and then let it full auto.
Blessings for the bride.
Game over.
Blessings for the bride.
Game over.
I protect Peekaboo. Blessings for the bride. Blessings for the bride. Peekaboo. For their glory. Blessings for the bride.
Game
Peekaboo.
over.
I protect. Blessings for the bride. Peekaboo.
Game over.
And voila, there's your run with 10.1 billion damage, easily achieved on the Living Abyss. I hope that this guide helped you guys. Any questions, suggestions, corrections or further tips, leave them in the comments. I hope you all enjoyed. Like the video if you did, and maybe you could subscribe too, because I'm planning on hopefully making some more Cookie Run Kingdom guides soon. My TikTok is also in the description if you guys like shorter form content. See you soon, bye!